Regenerative ag is a farming philosophy that's based on 5 principles that a regenerative farmer can do to restore their farm ecosystem. And so those things are to reduce soil disturbance. So when we till soil, it kind of disrupts this habitat for all this life underground. It breaks up those soil aggregates. It makes the soil function more like a brick than a sponge. So that basically means do less tillage. The second one is to maximize diversity. So soil is a living ecosystem, and living things need food to be healthy, and they need a diverse diet really to be healthy. And so really what microbes are eating are the roots of plants and the sugars that leak out of the roots. And different types of plants will have different types of roots and sugars. And so when we have a huge amount of diversity of plants in an ecosystem, that means that there's a really diverse diet for that below ground ecosystem, and so they're really healthy. Diversity is how farmers can naturally protect themselves against like weeds, pests, diseases, all these things that are trying to eat their crops. And so when we rotate crops and have different types of plants out in a field, that's kind of our natural defense mechanism against pests and diseases. The third principle is to keep the soil covered. That's really important to keep the soil from blowing away or washing away, so protecting it from wind and rain. We got to keep the soil in the field if we want to have any chance of regenerating it. The fourth principle is to keep a living root in the ground year-round. If you think about most crops that farmers grow, those plants really only grow for a couple months out of the year, and so we have these long windows of time in the fall and the spring when there's no living plant in the ground. And because the soil is alive and it needs food, it needs living plants to feed them carbon, basically. And so when we have long stretches of time without a living plant on farms, that's a starving below ground ecosystem. And so regenerative farmers are constantly thinking, how do I take advantage of every ray of sunlight and turn it into a green living plant in order to feed my soil? And the fifth principle is to integrate livestock. And if you think about where most agriculture happens today, it used to be grasslands, and grasslands evolved for millennia with huge herds of bison migrating through and grazing and depositing dung and urine and stepping in the soil. And when we recreate that with how we integrate livestock into farms in dense herds, moving them frequently, that has huge impacts on the soil. It's really the fastest way you can restore the soil and restore the ecosystem. Those are the things farmers can do to make their soil healthier, to bring back biodiversity, and also to become more profitable. Because as farmers start to restore their ecosystem, they can cut back on expensive inputs like fertilizer and herbicides and pesticides and things that are really expensive and also require a lot of energy to make. So they can reduce their carbon footprint, they can become more profitable and become more resilient.